Hello, Michael Cross here, and just a little background. I've taught international finance, economics for a good number of years, and so I just want to make a video dealing with the one of the crucial issues facing the public today. And before I begin, I would just encourage people to subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell, then you'll be sure to get notified when new videos come out. And there's a bunch of new ones that are going to be coming out here very shortly. Anyway, the issue I want to deal with is one that I think politicians give lip service to, but not that many really do much about, and that is the plight of the middle class. Now, first of all, by definition, it's hard to deal with what is middle class. Traditionally, it's been when you're in that section of the economy where it's no longer subsistence and you can save and you can maybe, buy your own home, buy a, car, be able to go on vacations, and not worry that you're going to be without money by doing so. Now, worldwide in the last 20 years, the middle class has really expanded, but that's a worldwide situation. It's also dependent on what our definition of middle class is, which perhaps if you're in Indonesia or even China, it would be different in magnitude as opposed to what our Western standards are for middle class. Things are cheaper in those countries, and if you're going from poor to middle class, there's been some major leaps around the world, and the process that took maybe 100 years of economic evolution in Western countries has leapt forward, so to speak. Don't want to copy from Mao Zedong too much, but there's been this growth of middle class in many of these countries that, they might have half or a third or even a quarter of the income that people do here in the West, and yet they're still able to afford to do these things that we're used to and we almost take for granted until recently. Now, one thing that's been a major change when it comes to the middle class is a lot of outsourcing of production. Now, it used to be, I remember when I went to high school, there was people who quit and high school and they went to work for lumber mills or other types of factories, and they earned more money than the teacher who had been teaching them in class. And, this is true, throughout the United States. People were able to get jobs in auto, in lumber, in mining, in industry. You name it. There was many jobs that were working class, but with salaries that put them into the middle class, where, even one person could work in the household, have a family, 3 or 4 kids, be able to not worry about educating them, and have a nice house, 2 cars, whatever. Now, the thing is, there's been a pressure that's been placed on that, and there's from a lot of factors. Environmental laws that kind of cause many companies to decide that maybe it was better just to relocate where you didn't have these kinds of laws. There's been automation in factories, where what used to take maybe 200 people working there during a shift, you might only need 50 or less. And the problem is, as the technology gets better, you might get to the point where you don't need any people working to make things. And on top of that, you have I want to give another example here. When I went to high school, you had a lot of, primarily the female students, who, before they went to college or during college, they would go work in a bank. I remember those days, or if you're old enough, that you could go into a bank and there was like 15 people working as tellers. What killed that was the ATM, where you could do more and more of your banking through the ATM. Now, really, what you go to a bank for is mostly things like getting a loan for a car or a house. And even that is becoming more and more online. So those jobs don't exist. We see jobs disappearing in well, the retail and so forth. And the thing is, whereas these are not jobs that people were like, oh, I really need this job. Being a bank teller was not a job that you could buy a house on your own. But it did offer middle class people a second income, or it allowed people to earn money for college. Well, a lot of times now your teenagers can't find jobs, and they have a choice between military if they're healthy and so forth, have good grades, or they can take out student loans, which they'll be paying off until their middle age, or not even go to college. And this is a problem. This pressure that's being placed, and business, face it, they want to make things and sell them for as high a price as they can with as low of cost as they can. So automation, robots, things like that, they like it, especially the bigger businesses which can afford to do this. Smaller businesses, they still have to rely on people. But the bigger businesses, if they start getting robots, then of course they can make things cheaper, and people will go and buy stuff that's cheapest, which will mean the small businesses are getting pushed out. And it doesn't help when the government sets up regulations and taxes and so forth that is reducing the ability for these small companies to compete against the mega corporations. And we've seen a lot of this during the corona lockdowns that took place in many parts of the world, in which the corporations made a huge amount of money, whereas the small businesses got pushed out and had to take out, to survive, they had to take out massive loans in order to keep going. I mean, when you had big box stores being allowed to be open for reason, I'm not even going to go into that, and then the small boutiques and so forth had to close, well, who's paying their bills? They're still having to pay rent. They're still having to, feed themselves and pay employees and so forth. This has been the biggest wealth transfer in the last 2 years that's ever taken place in modern times. So really, what we have is a situation in which this has to be addressed, because you cannot wind up with a society similar to, I don't know, San Francisco, where you have lots of rich people, and things cost a lot. And then you have a huge number of homeless people because they can't afford a place to stay. And, this is something that we've usually associated with developing countries, not with, countries like the United States and Canada. And yet now we're seeing that evolving. And we can't just start thinking, oh, well, these industries are all part of the past. Let's just let them die. Because no one really knows what to replace them with right now. So we need to be able to maintain this middle, not rich, not poor, foundation of our society, because that is usually what democratic societies have depended on. Are people who have skills, education, go to work, make things, and have a reasonably good standard of living. And, I don't think too many of us want a situation where there is, small number of people at the top of the pyramid with lots of money, and a large number of people at the bottom and even the middle part with no money. Anyway, but that's some of the problems that, and some of the reasons why the middle class has been having problems in recent years. Anyway, that's all for this segment, and hope to see you later. Bye now.